The lunch rush at Milano's was in full swing when my brother Marcus decided to make his announcement. I was expediting orders in the kitchen, ensuring each plate met our standards before heading to the dining room. The familiar sounds of sizzling pans, chopping knives, and busy conversation filled the space I'd grown to love over the past 3 years. Marcus had been the general manager for 8 months, ever since our parents convinced me to give him a chance to prove himself in the family business. What they didn't know was that Milano's wasn't the family business they assumed it was. When I bought the struggling restaurant through my LLC, Riverside Holdings, I'd kept the ownership structure quiet. My family saw me as the computer girl, who somehow talked her way into a restaurant job, not someone capable of running a successful business. Sarah. Marcus's voice cut through the kitchen noise. Front and center. Now. I wiped my hands on my apron and walked to the pass window. The dining room was packed with our usual Tuesday crowd: business people, families, regulars who'd become part of our extended community. Marcus stood in the center of it all, his chest puffed out like he was about to deliver a state address. "Ladies and gentlemen," he announced loudly enough for the entire restaurant to hear, "I need to address a staffing issue that's been affecting your dining experience." My stomach dropped. Whatever was coming, it wasn't going to be good. "This is my sister Sarah," he continued, gesturing toward me with theatrical flair. "She's been working here as a line cook, but frankly she's not meeting our standards. The family charity program ends today." The dining room fell silent. Forks stopped halfway to mouths. Conversations died mid-sentence. Even the kitchen staff behind me had gone quiet, everyone sensing the shift in atmosphere. "Marcus," I said quietly, "maybe we should discuss this privately." "No, I think transparency is important," he replied, his voice carrying that particular tone he'd perfected since childhood, the one that meant he was enjoying having power over me. "See, Sarah here has always been the family disappointment. Never could hold down a real job, so our parents asked me to help her out. But I'm running a business, not a charity." Mrs. Chin, one of our regular customers who came in every Tuesday with her book club, looked uncomfortable. The business lunch table in corner booth 6 had stopped their meeting entirely to stare. This was exactly the kind of scene that could damage Milano's reputation permanently. "You see," Marcus continued, warming to his audience, "Sarah thinks she understands the restaurant business because she can follow recipes. But management, strategy, customer service excellence? That requires real skills, real education, real experience. Things she's never had." He'd been building toward this moment for months. Every staff meeting where he'd dismiss my suggestions. Every time he'd introduce himself to vendors as the owner's son. Every decision he'd made without consultation, assuming his title as general manager meant he had ultimate authority. "So effective immediately," Marcus announced, pulling a termination letter from his pocket. "Sarah's employment here is terminated. We'll be hiring a qualified line cook who can actually contribute to our success." The dining room remained frozen. Our head server Miguel looked stricken. He'd been with me since day one, knew the real story, but understood why we kept the ownership structure quiet. Our family dynamics were complicated enough without adding business ownership to the mix. "You can't be serious," I said, though part of me wasn't surprised. Marcus had always been the golden child, the one with the business degree and the confident handshake. When our parents talked about success, they meant people like Marcus, loud, ambitious, quick to take credit. "Dead serious," he replied, extending the termination letter. "Pack your things and turn in your apron. Security will escort you out if necessary." I looked around the dining room at faces I'd come to know over 3 years. Mrs. Chen's book club, who always ordered our special pasta and left generous tips. The young couple in booth 2 who'd had their first date here and came back every month to celebrate their anniversary. The construction crew from the site across the street who trusted us with their limited lunch break time. These people weren't just customers to me. They were the reason I'd worked 16-hour days to turn Milano's from a failing restaurant with a 1-star Yelp rating into the neighborhood gem it had become. They were why I'd personally interviewed every staff member, why I'd spent months perfecting our menu, why I'd invested not just money but my heart into making this place something special. "Fine," I said quietly, untying my apron. "I'll pack my things." Marcus smirked, clearly pleased with himself. "Smart choice. Don't make this harder than it needs to be." I walked back to the kitchen, past the prep stations I'd designed, past the equipment I'd carefully selected, past the staff schedule I'd spent hours optimizing to ensure everyone got fair hours and decent pay. My personal knife set went into my bag along with the few belongings I kept in the office. Miguel appeared at my elbow. "Sir, this is crazy. You can't just let him." "It's okay," I said, though it definitely wasn't okay. Sometimes people need to learn things the hard way. As I gathered my things, I could hear Marcus in the dining room, already spinning the narrative to our customers. "Sometimes you have to make tough decisions to maintain quality. We'll have a new qualified chef by tomorrow." The kitchen staff watched me with confusion and anger. They knew who really ran this place, who approved their schedules, who fought for their raises, who stayed late to cover shifts when they had emergencies. But they also knew that speaking up could cost them their jobs, and most of them had families to support. I slung my bag over my shoulder and walked through the dining room one last time. The customers watched with uncomfortable expressions, sensing they'd witnessed something that didn't quite add up. Marcus stood near the register, arms crossed, looking satisfied with his public display of authority. "Good luck with everything," I said to him as I passed. "Won't need it," he replied. "Finally going to run this place properly." I pushed through the front door into the afternoon sunlight, my 3 years at Milano's officially over. The irony wasn't lost on me. I'd been fired from my own restaurant by someone who genuinely believed he had the authority to do it. My phone buzzed as I reached my car. Unknown number. "Hello. Ms. Rodriguez? This is Jennifer Walsh from First National Business Banking. I'm calling because we received some unusual activity alerts on your Milano's restaurant account. It appears someone attempted to access your business credit line without proper authorization. Also, one of your employees called claiming to be the owner and demanding access to your operational accounts. I wanted to verify this with you directly since you're listed as the sole account holder and business owner." I sat in my car watching through Milano's front windows as Marcus gestured animatedly to the remaining customers, probably explaining how much better things would be now. "That's very interesting," I said. "What exactly did this employee claim?" "He said he was Marcus Rodriguez, the owner, and that he needed to terminate your access to the account since you were no longer employed. He also requested immediate access to today's receipts and demanded we reverse your recent equipment purchases. When we asked for proper documentation, he became quite agitated." Through the window I could see Marcus on his phone, his confident expression shifting to confusion, then frustration. "Ms. Rodriguez? Are you there?" "Yes, I'm here. And no, Marcus Rodriguez is not the owner. He's the general manager, though as of today that may be changing. Could you send someone to the restaurant? I think there are some ownership clarifications that need to be made in person." "Absolutely. Our business relationship manager can be there within 30 minutes. We take unauthorized access attempts very seriously, especially when someone claims to own an account they don't have legal rights to." I hung up and sat in my car for a moment watching the restaurant I'd built from the ground up. 3 years ago, Milano's had been a failing dive with health code violations and a reputation for terrible food. I'd bought it for a fraction of its assessed value, spending months renovating, hiring the right staff, perfecting recipes, and building relationships with our community. My family never understood how I'd managed to talk my way into a restaurant job. They assumed I was just lucky that someone took pity on the family disappointment and gave me a chance. The reality that I'd identified an undervalued business opportunity, secured financing, navigated licensing requirements, and turned it into a profitable enterprise, didn't fit their narrative of who I was supposed to be. Marcus had always been the successful one, the one with the MBA and the corporate job. When he got laid off 6 months ago, our parents pressured me to help him out. "Give your brother a chance," they'd said. "He has real business experience. He could probably teach you a lot about running a restaurant properly." So I'd hired him as general manager, hoping that family loyalty would outweigh my reservations. For the first few months it had worked reasonably well. Marcus brought energy and ambition, and some of his corporate experience did translate to restaurant operations. But gradually his attitude shifted from gratitude to entitlement, from collaboration to control. He started introducing himself to vendors as the owner's son. He began making unilateral decisions about staffing and menu changes. He talked about his vision for the restaurant's future, as if I were just a temporary obstacle to his grand plans. And increasingly he treated me not as his employer, but as a subordinate who needed constant management and correction. My phone buzzed with a text from Miguel. He's freaking out. Bank called and he's screaming at everyone. What's happening? I typed back, don't worry. Everything's going to be fine. Just keep the kitchen running. 25 minutes later, a professional-looking woman in a navy suit entered Milano's. Through the front windows, I watched her approach Marcus, who was standing near the register looking increasingly agitated. She presented her business card and asked to speak with him privately. I could see Marcus's body language shift from confident to defensive to confused. His gestures became more animated, his voice louder, though I couldn't make out the words from my car. Other customers began glancing toward their conversation with obvious discomfort. The woman remained calm and professional, occasionally referring to a tablet in her hands. She was clearly explaining something that Marcus didn't want to hear, based on his increasingly frantic responses. My phone rang again. Marcus's number. Sarah, you need to get back here right now. His voice was tight with panic. There's some woman here from the bank making crazy accusations about ownership. She's saying you own Milano's, which is obviously impossible. You need to come back and clear this up. I'm sorry, but I don't work there anymore, I replied calmly. You fired me, remember? In front of the entire lunch rush. This isn't a joke. She's saying she's going to freeze the accounts until she can verify ownership with you. She's talking about calling corporate headquarters and legal departments. This could shut down the restaurant. Through the window I could see the banking representative talking to Miguel now, who was nodding and pointing toward the kitchen. Several customers had left money on their tables and were heading for the door, clearly uncomfortable with the drama unfolding in what was supposed to be their peaceful lunch spot. That does sound serious, I said. Maybe you should have thought about that before publicly humiliating me in front of our customers. Our customers? Sir, you're a line cook. You don't have customers. Actually, Marcus, I think you're about to learn something interesting about that. I hung up and got out of my car. Time to handle this properly. When I walked back into Milano's, the banking representative looked up from her conversation with Miguel and smiled with recognition. Ms. Rodriguez, thank you for coming. I'm Jennifer Walsh from First National. We spoke on the phone. Thank you for responding so quickly, Jennifer. I appreciate your diligence in protecting our business accounts. Marcus stared at us with growing confusion. Sarah, what is this woman talking about? Why is she calling you Rodriguez, like you're somebody important? Jennifer consulted her tablet. Mr. Marcus Rodriguez, I presume? You're listed in our system as an authorized employee for transaction processing, but not as an account holder or business owner. The account belongs entirely to Sarah Rodriguez, operating under the business entity Riverside Holdings LLC. The remaining customers had stopped pretending to eat and were openly watching our conversation. Mrs. Chen's book club had their phones out, probably texting their families about the drama unfolding at their usual lunch spot. That's impossible, Marcus said, his voice getting louder. This is a family restaurant. Our parents set this up. Sarah works in the kitchen. According to our records, Jennifer continued professionally. Ms. Sarah Rodriguez purchased Milano's restaurant 3 years ago through her LLC. She holds the business license, the liquor license, the lease agreements, and all operational accounts. You were added as an authorized general manager 8 months ago, with limited transaction privileges. I watched Marcus process this information. His face cycled through confusion, disbelief, anger, and finally, a dawning understanding of how badly he'd miscalculated. But, you don't know anything about business, he said to me, his voice smaller now. You work in the kitchen. I work everywhere, I replied. Because I own everything. Jennifer pulled out a document folder. I brought copies of the account agreements and business registration paperwork, since there seemed to be some confusion about authority levels. Ms. Rodriguez, you'll need to review the unauthorized access attempts and decide how you'd like to proceed. She handed me the folder and I glanced through the papers. Marcus had tried to access not just the daily receipts, but also our line of credit, vendor payment accounts, and payroll systems. If he'd succeeded, he could have done serious damage to our financial stability. Jennifer, I said, I think we need to make some changes to the authorized user list. Marcus stepped forward, panic clear in his voice now. Sir, wait. Let's talk about this privately. There's been a misunderstanding. The misunderstanding, I replied, was thinking you could fire me from my own restaurant. I turned to address the remaining customers, who deserved an explanation for the chaos they'd witnessed. Ladies and gentlemen, I apologize for the disruption to your lunch. My name is Sarah Rodriguez and I'm the owner of Milano's. We've had some internal staffing issues that are being resolved. Miguel, our head server, will make sure everyone's meal is complimentary today, and I hope you'll give us another chance to provide the peaceful dining experience you come here for. Mrs. Chin raised her hand like she was in a classroom. Honey, are you the one who changed the menu 2 years ago to include those wonderful vegetarian options? Yes, ma'am. We wanted to make sure everyone in the community felt welcome here. And you're the one who stayed open during that snowstorm last winter so the construction workers could have somewhere warm to eat lunch? That's right. She nodded approvingly. Then you keep doing what you're doing. That young man's behavior was completely inappropriate. The construction crew leader from the corner table stood up. We've been coming here for 3 years. Food's been great, service is always good. We don't care about your family drama, but we do care about being treated with respect when we're trying to eat our lunch. Other customers murmured agreement. These were people who'd supported Milano's through our growth from struggling restaurant to neighborhood institution. They'd watched me expedite their orders, remembered their preferences, asked about their families. To them, I wasn't the family disappointment. I was the person who made their lunch hour a little better every day. Marcus stood in the middle of the dining room, his public display of authority having backfired completely. The confident speech about hiring qualified staff and running a real business now looked like exactly what it was, an uninformed power grab by someone who'd fundamentally misunderstood the situation. Ms. Rodriguez, Jennifer said, what would you like me to update in our system regarding Mr. Marcus Rodriguez's access levels? I looked at my brother who was staring at the floor with the deflated posture of someone whose entire worldview had just collapsed. Remove him from all accounts, effective immediately, I said. And Jennifer? Thank you for protecting my business. Your diligence probably prevented some serious financial damage. She nodded and made notes on her tablet. We'll process these changes within the hour. Mr. Marcus Rodriguez, you'll need to return any business credit cards, account access codes, or financial documents in your possession. Marcus looked up at me with an expression I'd never seen before, not anger, not dismissal, but genuine recognition that he'd made a catastrophic error in judgment. Sarah, he said quietly, I didn't know. Our parents said what they always say, I interrupted. That I'm the family disappointment who needs help from her successful brother. What they didn't know is that I bought this place 3 years ago when it was failing, turned it into a profitable business and created jobs for 15 people including you. The dining room remained silent, our family drama playing out in front of people who just wanted to eat their lunch in peace. I gave you a management position because family is important to me, I continued. I trusted you with significant responsibility and hoped you'd use it to learn the business. Maybe eventually become a real partner. Instead, you used it to publicly humiliate me based on assumptions that were completely wrong. Marcus's shoulders sagged. What happens now? I looked around the dining room at Miguel waiting to clean up this mess, at Mrs. Chen's book club watching with fascinated concern, at the construction crew who'd lost part of their lunch break to family drama, at the business lunch table where people were checking their watches and clearly regretting their restaurant choice. Now you clean out your office, return all business materials, and think about whether public humiliation is really the best management strategy, I said. And I get back to work running my restaurant. Jennifer finished her paperwork and shook my hand. Ms. Rodriguez, we appreciate your business and apologize for the inconvenience. If you need any assistance with the account security updates, please don't hesitate to call. After she left, Marcus stood in the middle of the dining room looking lost. The confident general manager who'd fired me 30 minutes ago had been replaced by someone who clearly had no idea what to do next. Sarah, he said, I'm sorry. I really thought. I know what you thought, I replied. The same thing our whole family thinks. That success looks like an MBA and a corporate title, not like someone who quietly builds something from nothing. The problem is, you never bothered to find out what was actually happening here before you decided to take control. Miguel approached cautiously. Boss, what do you need me to do? Make sure everyone gets taken care of, I said, tying my apron back on. And let the kitchen staff know that the drama is over. We still have a restaurant to run. As I walked back toward the kitchen, Marcus called after me. What should I tell our parents? I stopped and turned around. Tell them that their family disappointment owns a successful restaurant, employs 15 people, and just learned an important lesson about making assumptions. And Marcus, next time someone gives you a job, maybe try to understand the business before you decide to take it over. The lunch rush resumed its normal rhythm, though with an undercurrent of excited conversation about what customers had just witnessed. Mrs. Chen's book club was already planning to come back next week specifically to support the restaurant after the family drama. The construction crew left their usual generous tip and promised to spread the word that Milano's was still the best lunch spot in the neighborhood. By the time the afternoon shift arrived, Marcus had quietly cleaned out his office and left. Miguel found his keys and access cards on the desk, along with a handwritten note that simply said, "I'm sorry." That evening, as I closed up the restaurant I'd built from nothing, I reflected on the day's events. Marcus's public firing hadn't just been about asserting authority. It had been about a fundamental misunderstanding of who I was and what I was capable of achieving. Our family had always seen me as the one who needed help, not the one providing it. But Milano's success wasn't an accident or a lucky break. It was the result of 3 years of careful planning, hard work, financial risk-taking, and relationship building. The customers who defended me during Marcus's meltdown understood that, even if my own family didn't. My phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number. "This is Marcus. Can we talk tomorrow? I think I have a lot to learn." I smiled and put the phone away. Tomorrow we could talk about lessons learned and whether second chances were possible. Tonight I had a successful restaurant to close up and plans to make for continued growth. Sometimes the family disappointment turns out to be the family success story. It just takes the right moment for everyone else to notice.
"We'll all live together. It's perfect," Marcus announced, leaning against our kitchen counter with a self-satisfied smile. "No messy divorce, no legal hassles, no property division. Just one big happy arrangement." I continued chopping carrots, my knife hitting the cutting board with precise, steady strokes. "My name is Julia, and at 35, I was listening to my husband of 8 years explain why his 24-year-old girlfriend should move into our house. Olivia's lease is up next week," he continued, mistaking my silence for acceptance. "She's young fun. She'll bring some excitement into our lives. You've been so focused on your writing lately, this could be good for all of us." The knife paused mid-chop. I looked up at Marcus, taking in his expensive new haircut. The designer watch Olivia had helped him pick out, the eager gleam in his eyes. "And where exactly will Olivia be sleeping?" I asked, my voice steady. He shifted uncomfortably. "Well, I thought, maybe we could convert your study into a room. For now. Of course, my study. The space where I'd spent the last 3 years writing my mystery novels. The ones Marcus dismissed as a hobby even though they paid for his new car. For now?" I echoed, resuming my chopping. "You know what I mean, Jules. We'll figure it out as we go. The important thing is keeping things unofficial. No lawyers, no paperwork, just adults making adult decisions." I scraped the carrots into the pot, watching them splash into the simmering broth. "Sounds perfect," I said quietly. Marcus blinked, clearly thrown by my easy agreement. "Really? I mean, yes, of course it does. I knew you'd understand. When does she arrive?" "Tomorrow afternoon. I'll help her move her things and while you're at your writing group." I nodded, adding a pinch of thyme to the pot. Perfect timing. He stood there for a moment, waiting for the argument that wouldn't come. Finally, he pushed off from the counter. "Right, well, I should call Olivia. Let her know everything's set." After he left, I pulled out my phone and sent a quick text to my sister Anna. "It's happening, just like we thought." Her response was immediate. "Everything ready?" "Almost. Need one more day." I'd seen this coming for months. The late nights at the office, the new clothes, the sudden interest in social media. Marcus wasn't exactly subtle. 2 months ago, I'd found a receipt for dinner at La Petite Bistro. Definitely not from a business meeting, since Marcus hated French food. That's when I started preparing. The next morning, I left for my writing group as usual. Marcus barely looked up from his phone as I headed out, too busy texting Olivia about their grand plans. He didn't notice the extra bag I carried or the fact that I'd worn my comfortable walking shoes instead of my usual heels. I drove to the coffee shop where my writing group met every Thursday, parked my car, and waited. At exactly 2:15 p.m., Anna pulled up beside me. "Ready?" she asked as I climbed into her car. "More than ready." We drove past our house at 3:00 p.m., just in time to see Marcus helping a young blonde carry boxes through our front door. Olivia was exactly as I'd imagined. Pretty in that obvious way that made me feel simultaneously old and relieved. "Nice shoes," Anna commented dryly, noting Olivia's impractical heels. "Those'll look great when she's taking out the trash." "If she stays long enough to learn where the trash goes," I replied. We drove to the modest apartment building across town where I signed a lease last week. Everything was already set up, furniture delivered, utilities connected, kitchen stocked. I'd been planning this move for weeks, ever since I'd overheard Marcus on the phone with Olivia, plotting their perfect solution. "You're sure about this?" Anna asked as she helped me carry in the last of my bags. I looked around the sunny apartment, at the desk positioned perfectly by the window where I could write, at the peaceful silence that wouldn't be interrupted by Marcus's complaints or Olivia's giggles. "Absolutely sure." "What time will they figure it out?" I checked my watch. "Probably around dinner time when they realize I'm not coming back to cook for them." Anna laughed. "And the best part?" I pulled out my phone, opening the email I'd received that morning. My new book deal. The advance is enough to buy Marcus out of the house, which he won't know until my lawyer contacts him tomorrow. And since he's so against legal hassles, he'll have to explain to Olivia why their perfect arrangement suddenly involves moving out. As if on cue, my phone buzzed with a text from Marcus. "Where are you? Thought you'd be home by now." I typed back, "Making adult decisions. You understand." Then I turned off my phone, poured 2 glasses of wine, and sat down with my sister to wait for the chaos we knew would come. Sometimes the best revenge isn't a big confrontation. It's simply letting people face the consequences of their own brilliant plans. "To new beginnings," Anna said, raising her glass. I clinked mine against hers. "And to perfect arrangements." Outside, the sun was setting on one chapter of my life, but I wasn't afraid of the dark. After all, I wrote mysteries for a living. I knew all about plotting the perfect twist ending. The first signs of Marcus's panic arrived around 7 p.m. when Anna and I were halfway through our takeout dinner. My phone, now turned back on, lit up with a barrage of messages. "Jules, where are you? This isn't funny. We need to talk about this like adults. Answer your fate only." The last one made me smile. Marcus had always hated being ignored. It threatened his carefully constructed image of control. I could picture him pacing our kitchen, no, his kitchen now, running his hands through his perfectly styled hair while Olivia perched uncertainly on one of our bar stools. Should I reply? I asked Anna, showing her the messages. She shook her head, taking another bite of pad thai. Let him stew. He wanted an arrangement without legal hassles. Well, this is about as unofficial as it gets. I had just muted my phone when someone knocked on my apartment door. Anna and I exchanged glances. We weren't expecting anyone, and only 3 people knew where I was. Through the peephole, I saw Marcus's mother, Helen, standing in the hallway. "Did you tell her where you were?" Anna whispered. "No, but she's friends with my real estate agent." I took a deep breath and opened the door. Helen burst in, her designer handbag swinging wildly. "Julia, what is going on? Marcus just called me in a complete state, saying you've disappeared. And then I hear from Susan that you've rented an apartment. This is madness." I gestured for her to sit down. "Would you like some pad thai?" "Pad? No, I don't want pad thai. I want to know why my son is at your house with some child, and you're here eating takeout like nothing's wrong." "Nothing is wrong," I said calmly. "Marcus wanted an informal living arrangement. I'm simply accommodating his wishes." Helen sank onto my new couch, her face cycling through confusion, anger, and something that looked suspiciously like admiration. "He told me about his ridiculous plan this morning. I told him he was being a fool, that no self-respecting woman would agree to such a thing." "He's right about one thing," I said, sitting across from her. "We don't need legal hassles. The house is in my name. My first book advance paid the down payment. The car he's so proud of, bought with my hobby money. Tomorrow, my lawyer will contact him with a very simple proposition. Take a fair cash settlement and leave, or we can make things very official very fast." Helen was quiet for a long moment. Finally, she opened her handbag and pulled out a small silver flask. "I knew I liked you for a reason," she said, taking a delicate sip. Marcus gets this from his father, you know. The entitlement, the magical thinking. When did you start planning this? 2 months ago, when I found the dinner receipt. I knew Marcus, he'd want to have his cake and eat it too. So I started moving money, making arrangements. The new book deal was just perfect timing. And the girl, Olivia, has no idea she's about to become homeless again. I doubt Marcus mentioned that part of his perfect plan. Helen took another sip from her flask, then held it out to me. You know, when Marcus first brought you home, I thought you were too quiet, too agreeable. I see now you were just watching, waiting, planning. I accepted the flask, feeling the smooth metal against my palm. I write mysteries, Helen. I know all about misdirection. My phone buzzed again. Marcus had switched to email. Julia, you're being ridiculous. Come home and we can discuss this like rational people. Olivia is very upset. This isn't the way adults handle things. Helen read the email over my shoulder and snorted. Rational people? Coming from my son, who thought moving his mistress into his marital home was a sound decision. Should I respond? I asked, enjoying this newfound alliance with my mother-in-law. Oh yes, Helen said, a wicked gleam in her eye. Let's help Marcus understand exactly how adults handle things. I typed out a reply. Dear Marcus, I agree completely. Adults handle things properly. My lawyer will contact you tomorrow with a settlement offer. Since you're against legal complications, I'm sure you'll appreciate the simplicity of the arrangement. Please ensure Olivia takes her shoes off when walking on my hardwood floors. Best regards, Julia. Send it, Helen commanded, and I did. The response was immediate. My phone started ringing. Marcus's face flashed on the screen, but I declined the call. He'll go to your writing group next Thursday, Helen predicted. He'll expect to find you there, to charm you back. The group meets at a different coffee shop now, I said. They were quite understanding when I explained this situation. Anna, who had been quietly watching this exchange, finally spoke up. You know what the best part is? When Marcus tells this story later, he'll have to admit that his wife outsmarted him while he was busy playing house with his girlfriend. Helen stood up, straightening her designer suit. Julia, dear, I'll handle damage control with the family. Just keep me updated. This is the most entertainment I've had since Marcus's father tried to convince me that his secretary was just helping him organize late-night meetings. After Helen left, Anna and I sat in comfortable silence, the remains of our dinner spread before us. My phone had gone quiet. Perhaps Marcus was finally realizing that his perfect arrangement had backfired spectacularly. What do you think they're doing right now? Anna wondered. I glanced at the clock. 8:30 p.m., probably realizing that neither of them knows how to cook. The housekeeper doesn't come until Tuesday, and all the takeout menus were in my desk drawer. The desk drawer in your study. The one Olivia's boxes are probably blocking right now. We both burst out laughing, the kind of deep, cleansing laughter that makes everything feel lighter. Outside, the city lights twinkled, and I felt a profound sense of peace. Tomorrow would bring its own challenges, but for now I was exactly where I needed to be. My phone lit up with one final message from Marcus. This isn't over. I smiled, thinking of the settlement papers being delivered to his office first thing tomorrow morning. No, I murmured, it's just beginning. The next morning, I woke up to the sound of birds chirping outside my new apartment window instead of Marcus's daily complaints about his coffee not being strong enough. The peace was interrupted by an urgent call from my lawyer, David. The papers have been delivered, he reported. You should expect some resistance. Right on cue, my phone buzzed with a call from Marcus. I declined it, putting my phone on silent as I started my morning writing routine. The words flowed easily. Amazing how creative you can be when you're not managing someone else's emotional weather. Around noon, my doorbell rang. Through the peephole, I saw Olivia standing there, looking considerably less polished than she had yesterday. I opened the door. Julia, she said, her voice shaking. We need to talk. I leaned against the doorframe. About what? Marcus, he didn't tell me the house was yours. He said everything was joint property, that it wouldn't be complicated. She twisted her hands together. Now he's saying we have to leave by the end of the month. Sounds like you and Marcus have a lot to discuss. Please, she said. I gave up my apartment. I don't have anywhere else to go. I felt a flicker of pity, quickly replaced by resolve. That's funny. Yesterday you were quite happy to take my home. Now you're worried about not having one. She flushed. It wasn't like that. Marcus said you were okay with it, that you understood modern relationships, and you believed him. A man willing to move his girlfriend into his wife's house without any legal protection. I shook my head. Think carefully about what that says about his character. The realization dawned slowly on her face. He said the same thing about my apartment lease. That we didn't need paperwork, that it was better to keep things simple. Let me guess, he suggested you give up your lease before discussing any of this with me? She nodded, tears forming in her eyes. Olivia, I said, softening slightly, take some free advice from someone who writes about manipulative characters for a living. People who avoid legal hassles are usually the ones you need legal protection from. After she left, I called Helen. You'll never guess who just visited, I began. Oh, I can guess, Helen replied. Marcus called me this morning, ranting about how unreasonable you're being. I told him he's lucky you're offering a settlement at all. By the way, have you checked your email? I opened my laptop to find an email from my publisher. The early reviews for my new book were in, and they were glowing. One line caught my eye. A masterful tale of deception and justice served cold. If they only knew. Later that afternoon, David called again. Marcus has agreed to the settlement, he said, though he did try to argue that his emotional investment in the house should count for something. I laughed. The same emotional investment he was willing to share with Olivia. Exactly. He's signing the papers tomorrow. The money will be transferred directly to his account, and he has 30 days to vacate the property. And Olivia? Not mentioned in any of the legal documents, interestingly enough. That evening, Anna came over with champagne. We stood on my small balcony, watching the sunset paint the sky in shades of pink and gold. You know what I love most about this? Anna said, filling our glasses. You gave him exactly what he wanted. No legal hassles, no messy divorce. Just a simple property transaction. Sometimes the best revenge is simply turning someone's words against them. I replied, thinking of all the times Marcus had dismissed my writing as mere stories. My phone buzzed with a text from Helen. Dinner next Sunday. I want to hear all about your new book. I smiled, showing the message to Anna, who knew my happy ending would include my mother-in-law. Soon-to-be ex-mother-in-law, Anna corrected. No, I said, thinking of Helen's quiet strength during her own divorce years ago. Some family ties are chosen, not given. A week later, I drove past my old house and saw Marcus and Olivia arguing on the front lawn, moving boxes scattered around them. Through my open window, I caught snippets of their conversation, something about broken promises and trust. I didn't slow down. Their story wasn't mine anymore. Back in my apartment, I sat down at my desk and opened my laptop. My cursor blinked at the top of a fresh page as I typed. Chapter 1. Sometimes the perfect crime isn't taking something that doesn't belong to you. It's simply letting go of what does. My phone buzzed one last time with a message from Marcus. I hope you're happy with yourself. I looked around my peaceful apartment at the life I'd built from the ashes of his betrayal and typed back, I am, thank you for asking. Then I turned back to my novel, ready to write my own story, on my own terms, in my own home. After all, isn't that what happy endings are really about? Some people might call what I did revenge. I prefer to think of it as poetic justice, served without legal hassles, just as Marcus wanted. Sometimes the best plot twists are the ones we write for ourselves. My hand trembled as I held the phone, listening to my sister's smug voice through the speaker. Thanks for the brilliant idea, sis. I've already got investors lined up. You should be proud. Your invention is finally going somewhere. My name is Olivia Chen, and at 32, I had just discovered my sister Amanda had stolen my life's work. A revolutionary water filtration system I'd spent 3 years developing in my garage. The worst part? She'd found my prototype and research notes while helping me move apartments last month. You can't do this, Amanda, I said, keeping my voice steady despite the rage building inside me. That filtration system is my work. Every design, every test, every failure and success. It's all documented in my research journals. She laughed, the sound sharp and dismissive. Oh please, sketches in a notebook don't mean anything. I've already got the provisional patent application ready to file. Face it, you were never going to do anything with it anyway. You're too afraid to take risks. At least I have the courage to make it happen. I gripped my desk, memories flooding back of all the times Amanda had taken credit for my achievements. In high school, she claimed my science project as her own, winning first place while I stayed silent. In college, she borrowed my research paper for inspiration and somehow ended up submitting an almost identical version to her professor. Every time, our parents brushed it off. Sisters share everything, or don't be so selfish, Olivia. But not this time. This wasn't just another school project. This was my future. I've got meetings with investors all week, Amanda continued, her voice dripping with fake sympathy. Don't worry, I'll make sure the family name shines bright. You can go back to your safe little research job and... I hung up, my hands still shaking but now with determination rather than anger. Walking to my home office, I opened my safe and pulled out a thick manila envelope. Inside was something Amanda didn't know existed, my official patent application, filed 6 months ago when I first caught her snooping around my prototype. I learned from experience that my sister couldn't be trusted. So this time, I'd been prepared. Every test result, every design iteration, every piece of documentation had been properly notarized and filed. I even kept video logs of my development process, all time-stamped and backed up securely. My phone buzzed again. Amanda, no doubt calling to continue gloating. Instead of answering, I emailed my patent attorney. It's happening exactly as we predicted. Time to proceed with phase 2. I smiled, thinking of the shocked look that would soon replace Amanda's smug expression. She thought she was so clever, but she just walked right into a trap 3 years in the making. Sometimes the best revenge isn't about getting even. It's about being 10 steps ahead. The next week unfolded exactly as I'd anticipated. Amanda paraded around town, meeting with potential investors, making grandiose promises about her revolutionary water filtration system. Each time she posted on social media about her breakthrough innovation, I documented it, adding to the steadily growing file my lawyer was building. My parents called, of course. Olivia, why can't you be supportive of your sister? My mother pleaded. She's finally found her passion. You know how much she's struggled to find her path. I sat in my home office, staring at the wall of technical drawings and certification documents I'd accumulated over 3 years of work. Mom, that's my invention. Every single aspect of it. Amanda stole my research, my prototype, everything. Don't be ridiculous, she scoffed. Amanda showed us all her work. She has diagrams, test results, everything. Why would she lie about something like this? I closed my eyes, remembering every time they dismissed my complaints about Amanda's behavior. Every time they told me to be the bigger person while she took credit for my achievements. You'll see soon enough, I said quietly, ending the call. 3 days later, Amanda hosted a big presentation for potential investors at the city's most expensive hotel. She'd invited the entire family, local media, even my old professors from engineering school. The irony wasn't lost on me. She'd gathered all the witnesses I needed in one place. I arrived early, taking a seat in the back row. Amanda spotted me and smirked, probably assuming I was there to watch helplessly as she claimed my work as her own. She had no idea she was about to walk into a carefully laid trap. Ladies and gentlemen, she began, standing proudly next to my prototype. I'm excited to present a breakthrough in water filtration technology. This system, which I've developed over the past year, represents a complete revolution in how we think about water purification. I watched as she clicked through slides that were clearly copied from my research documents, explaining concepts she barely understood. The investors nodded appreciatively, taking notes. My parents beamed with pride from the front row. Then Amanda reached the technical specifications, the part I've been waiting for. As she confidently rattled off numbers and processes, I pressed send on an email I prepared earlier. Exactly 30 seconds later, the hotel's AV system experienced an unexpected technical difficulty. The screen behind Amanda suddenly switched to a different presentation. My original pitch deck from 2 years ago, complete with dated timestamps and my signature on every slide. Amanda faltered, her professional demeanor cracking slightly. There seems to be some technical issue. That's when my patent attorney stood up from the middle row. Actually, Ms. Chen, there's no technical issue. I'm Richard Maxwell, representing the patent holder of this technology, your sister, Olivia Chen. The room went silent. Amanda's face drained of color as Mr. Maxwell continued. We have extensive documentation proving Ms. Olivia Chen's ownership of this intellectual property, including a patent application filed 6 months ago. Additionally, we have evidence of your unauthorized access to and attempted theft of this technology. He gestured to two people in suits who had been quietly filming the entire presentation. Representatives from the patent office are here as witnesses. Every claim you've made today about inventing this technology constitutes patent infringement and intellectual property theft. Amanda grabbed the microphone, her voice shrill. This is ridiculous. I developed this system. I have proof. You mean these? I finally spoke up, walking to the front of the room with a stack of papers. Your proof is actually copies of my research journals, the ones you photographed while helping me move. Every page is dated, notarized, and backed up with video documentation of my development process. Would you like me to play some of that footage for your investors? The room erupted in murmurs. Investors began gathering their things, shooting disapproving looks at Amanda. My parents sat frozen, their earlier pride replaced by shocked disbelief. I can explain, Amanda stammered, but it was too late. Mr. Maxwell was already distributing cease and desist orders to the investors, along with evidence packets documenting her attempted theft. I turned to the crowd, my voice clear and professional. I apologize for this disruption. For those still interested in the actual technology, I'll be holding a legitimate presentation next week. My team will contact you with details. As people filed out of the room, Amanda grabbed my arm. How could you do this to me, to your own sister? I gently removed her hand. No, Amanda. The question is, how could you do this to me, again? Did you really think I wouldn't protect my work this time? Our parents approached, their faces a mix of emotions. Dad looked disappointed, but for once, not in me. Mom just looked tired. Amanda, is this true? She asked quietly. Did you steal your sister's work? But Amanda was already pushing past them, running from the room in tears. She'd always been good at playing the victim when her schemes fell apart. The aftermath of Amanda's failed presentation unfolded like a carefully orchestrated symphony. Within days, my patent was fully approved, and several investors who had initially been approached by Amanda reached out to me directly. The irony wasn't lost on me. My sister's attempt to steal my invention had actually accelerated its path to market. But the personal fallout was harder to navigate. Amanda barricaded herself in her apartment, refusing to speak to anyone. Mom called daily, alternating between apologies and attempts to broker peace. Can't you drop the legal proceedings? She pleaded one evening. She's your sister, Olivia. She's suffering. I sat in my newly rented lab space, surrounded by improved prototypes of my filtration system. Mom, actions have consequences. Amanda needs to learn that she can't take what isn't hers. But she's family. Yes, she is, I interrupted, which made her betrayal even worse. How many times have you told me to let it go when she took credit for my work? How often did you dismiss my feelings because that's just how Amanda is? The silence on the other end was telling. Dad, surprisingly, took a different approach. He showed up at my lab one afternoon, looking older than I'd ever seen him. I owe you an apology, he said, examining my latest prototype. We failed you, Olivia. We enabled Amanda's behavior, made excuses for her, and taught her that she could get away with anything. Tears pricked at my eyes, but I kept working, adjusting a valve on the filtration unit. Why was it always my responsibility to keep the peace? Because you were stronger, he admitted. More capable. We took advantage of that, expected you to be the bigger person. It wasn't fair. He picked up one of my technical journals, flipping through pages of calculations and diagrams. This is incredible work, by the way. I'm sorry I didn't see it sooner. 2 weeks after the presentation, Amanda finally reached out, through her lawyer. She wanted to negotiate, to find a way to collaborate on the project. My response was simple. She could either sign a legal admission of her attempted theft and agree to cease all claims to my invention, or we could proceed with a full lawsuit. She chose the former, though not without attempting to spin the story one last time on social media. But my documentation was too thorough, my evidence too complete. Her posts only served to make her look more guilty. The real surprise came during a family dinner a month later. Amanda showed up unannounced, looking different, humbled, perhaps. I've been talking to a therapist, she announced quietly, about why I do these things. Take what isn't mine. Try to be you instead of finding my own path. I continued eating, not ready to offer forgiveness just yet. I'm not asking you to trust me again, she continued. I know I've destroyed that. But I am sorry, Olivia, truly sorry. Looking at her, I saw something I'd never seen before. Genuine remorse, not just regret at being caught. Thank you for saying that, I replied carefully. But you're right, trust has to be earned. 6 months later, my water filtration system launched to significant acclaim. The technology was being implemented in several developing countries, providing clean water to communities that desperately needed it. Every interview, every press release, every demonstration carried my name. Olivia Chen, inventor and engineer. Amanda found her own path eventually, going back to school for environmental science. Sometimes she'd send me articles about water conservation or sustainable technology, not trying to take credit or compete, just sharing information she thought I'd find interesting. Mom and Dad came to every demonstration, every award ceremony. They'd finally learned to celebrate my achievements without trying to share the spotlight with Amanda. It was a different kind of family dynamic, not perfect, but more honest. One evening, as I wrapped up a successful presentation, a young engineering student approached me. "Ms. Chen," she said hesitantly, "I read about what happened with your sister. How did you find the strength to stand up for yourself?" I thought about the years of preparation, the careful documentation, the quiet determination that had led to this moment. "I learned that protecting your work isn't selfish," I told her. "Standing up for yourself isn't wrong. Sometimes the hardest people to stand up to are family, but that doesn't make it any less necessary." Later that night, I added another entry to my project journal, not technical specifications this time, but a simple truth I'd learned through all of this. Success isn't just about creating something innovative. It's about having the courage to protect it, nurture it, and ensure it reaches its full potential, even when that means standing up to the people you love.